Right, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cabinet on Tuesday, the 13th of October. I'll start the agenda then with declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest. Has anybody got anything you want to declare? No? That's nothing on that, thank you. And then item 2, to approve the correct record of the minutes of the meeting on Cabinet held on the 22nd of September. Have a move and seconded from the floor. Approve. Thank you. So it's approved. Then we'll bring up item 3, which is to receive the minutes of overview scrutiny committee and subcommittee as listed on pages 11 to 22, which is health and care and wellbeing on the 8th of September and the children and young people on the 16th of September.
Move it, Chair.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All approved. Approved from the floor. Thank you very much indeed. So that brings us to the reports, and we'll start with the reports. Item 4, which is the East Riding of local plan report of the Director of Planning and Economic Regeneration. Mr. Menzies.
Thank you, Chairman. This report relates to the review process for the East Riding local plan. The plan was adopted in 2016 and in 2018 Cabinet agreed that the plan should be revised with a plan to the consultation on a draft with options in September/October this year. The purpose of this report is to update you and to suggest a revised timescale for the consultation process to commence. And I've set out in the executive summary a number of things that have happened in the recent past in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic and the publication by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government of 2 very significant consultation documents, one in the form of a white paper in relation to planning processes, the effect of which is that officers have reviewed where we are in the review process, and we think it's prudent to consider a revised timescale. We looked at some options which are set out in section 2 on page 29. One option was that we halt the process, wait until the 2 consultation processes have been concluded, and then consider recommencing it. A second option was to try to retain the existing timescale that was proposed and to try to pick up any amendments required subsequently. Or option C, which is the option which is preferable, was to reprogram the consultation process to reflect some issues around drivers for the local plan review and an achievable timescale. We've attached at Appendix A a schedule of the key drivers with some comments from officers. I don't intend to take you through all of those in detail, but if I could take you to Appendix B at the back of the report. The key issue is around what's known as the Regulation 18 public consultation, which is about a draft plan and options. And as you can see from the table, it was proposed for September/October this year. What we're proposing is we defer it until April, May 2021, when we should be clearer in terms of the future of the 2 consultations from MHCLG in relation to planning processes. If I could just take you back, Chairman, to the recommendations. The first recommendation is that review of the current local plan is focused down to the outstanding drivers with the reviewed timescale as reflected in option C. And the second recommendation is that as a result of the expected timetable for the introduction of the new planning system, the overall review should adopt a flexible approach. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry. Thank you for that. Now I've got speakers or questions. I've got Councillor Stathers.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Menzies. We were all rather hoping to have the consultation on the local plan review by now, but we know it's been a difficult year and the picture has changed significantly. So I would agree with the report that the local plan needs to be flexible enough to be able to adjust to any of the changes to the planning system that might be coming our way in the coming year or 2. It needs to incorporate a different way of calculating housing need. partly due to the pandemic, which has changed the way people work, possibly for the long term. For example, any changes in work patterns, which we're already seeing within the workforce, will have an impact on our housing strategy. And if more people decide to work from home in the long term, as we expect, then we could see greater demand for more new homes in our smaller settlements, not just in the larger towns, which have carried the weight of more housing for some years now. So I agree with the report. I think it would be wise, would be prudent to delay the local plan consultation until we've more clarification on such matters as the white paper, which we're also discussing this morning. And I'd like to formally move that we accept the recommendations.
Councillor Abraham.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second that. There's little point going so far down the road and then having to do a U-turn because we've been following the wrong track. So option C seems to give us the most flexibility. I think out there in our communities, though, what residents want to know, they're all aware of the site selection that's been going on, the bids that have come forward. They will want to know when the outcome of the site selection will be known. So can I ask Mr. Menzies, is that when you're talking about late April, May? Will that be when the sites become, the allocations become apparent?
Chairman, the straight answer is yes, but there will be some emerging information early on in the new year, pending the outcome of the consultation processes on the two produced by MHCLG.
Thank you for that. So from my perspective, yeah, I concur with what's been said, and I think it is sensible to be prudent and defer the consultation. Clearly, we have got a lot going on with the MHCLG consultations, and it is sensible to be wise and be prudent to do that. So to the recommendations then, are we happy to approve these recommendations in the report? Yeah. That's unanimous from the floor then. Thank you very much indeed. And Councillor Healing from who is Zooming. Yeah, thank you. So I now move to item 5, which is the A164 and Jocks Lodge Junction Improvement Scheme, making and serving a compulsory purchase order and the side roads order as listed, and that will be the Director of Planning and Economic Regeneration again, Mr. Alan Menzies.
Chairman, if I could help and take this one forward, and I'm very pleased on behalf of the council to bring forward the next stage of this large capital programme for the council, which will bring tremendous benefits in terms of reduced bottlenecks, reduced journey times, more journey reliability, and hopefully, as a result of all those things, bring additional prosperity for the East Riding and economic growth. So this is, as I said, our next step in bringing forward the Jocks Lodge Junction Improvement Scheme and a dual carriageway scheme along the A164, which has the support from the Department of Transport, having had programme entry back in May 2018. And things have moved on at a pace because following that, we also achieved planning approval on the 16th of July this year. And you'll see from the appendices the extensive nature of our construction ambition for that very important strategic road network. So to move forward, we're going to need to undertake some side road orders to stop up highways and build new highways to ensure this construction can take place, and also undertake compulsory purchase orders to purchase land if we're unable to obtain that land through negotiations. And the Department for Transport expect that we do have both these orders in place before they release the funding, just because it guarantees that we're able to proceed with the scheme. So that, Chair, takes me really to the recommendations, which I don't plan to read out in detail for you, but they are there in section D of the report.
Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is standard procedure. more so when you've got multiple ownerships. You've got to serve a compulsory purchase order, even though you might have agreements with everybody. As time goes on, some of them agreements may fall down. So, as I say, it's standard procedure, and I'm quite happy with the recommendations, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any more speakers?
Can I just confirm that if the funding isn't approved by the DFT, that this doesn't commit us to anything?
That's correct, Chair. We'll need all of the funding in place in order to proceed with the scheme.
Thank you for that. Well, I mean, this is good news, and it's rightly to point out it's an ambitious project, and it's something that will make a significant difference to the area and open up the area for its economic potential. Obviously, as part of that, these are standard procedures, and it's absolutely right that we put these necessary papers in place. So nobody wants to speak, or anyone else wants to speak on this? Back to the recommendations then. As listed, are we happy to move and seconded from the floor and approved both from the floor and from Councillor Healing on Zoom? Thank you. This brings us to item 6 then, the white paper planning for the future. In this case, is the Director of Planning and Economic Regeneration.
Thank you, Chairman. Government have issued a white paper called Planning for the Future, and with it a consultation document seeking views. The purpose of this paper is to take you through what I think is fair to describe as the very, very significant changes that are proposed by government to the planning system. And in effect, it's a complete overhaul of the planning process. Government see it as streamlining the process and cutting red tape, and there are differing views on that. I've set out at paragraph 1.2 in bullet points. I won't read them through to you. Government suggested proposed reforms, what they actually mean in their view. And then at 1.3, I've tried in one line to set out some of the key changes that they are proposing to the planning process. The document itself covers 4 key areas: planning for development, planning for beautiful and sustainable places, planning for infrastructure and connected places, and a final pillar known as delivering change. And within those pillars, there are 24 specific proposals. The consultation document seeks views of consultees and planning authorities and local authorities in particular in terms of those 24 pillars. What we've tried to do here is to encapsulate the views that we've gained from presentations to Eastern, Western and the Strategic Planning Committee. We've also run a seminar for all members, and we've consulted with the portfolio holder, chair of planning and others. And I do accept there are some significant views in relation to this document consultation process. If I could just take you back to the recommendation. The recommendation is that you agree a draft response at Appendix 1, and that you give delegated authority to myself in consultation with the portfolio holder to make any further amendments required. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That picks up the scene. Clearly, this is absolutely right that we pick up the views of the respective planning committee, but it's also we need to pick up that debate that we had at full council last week, which was very clear with our concerns around the proposed white paper, and it's absolutely right that we pick up those concerns. Before we go into any detail, Councillor Stathers, I'm going to talk first.
Thank you, Chair. As you referred to, I think anyone who witnessed or listened to the debate at full council last Wednesday will be left in no doubt that much of these proposed changes are really not welcome here in the East Riding. We do have an excellent planning system in the East Riding, involving our town and parish councils, individual residents. The system seems to work really well, and I know this authority is noted for its high performance in this respect. So it's a shame, as Mr. Menzies say, that we could be faced with some really significant changes to the system. And it's not just our members in this chamber who've expressed their concern, it's members of town and parish councils across the East Riding who are pretty anxious about this. Now, I'm sure there's some merit in the proposals and streamlining the system wherever we can, and using digital technology has to be the way forward. But I have some real concerns about the possible eradication of community involvement in the decision-making process. And I'm not alone in having some real concerns also over the financial impact of the proposed levy system. So all I would say is, if we are to accept this report, I'd like to add that officers add to their introduction a message that reflects the serious concerns of members of this authority, but with particular regard to the threat to community involvement and from the new levy system. And could I also add that if we are to delegate, we should also include the chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee. Thank you, Chair.
So thank you for that. So we're a few amendments to the recommendations, including the planning chairman in the consultation. So I've now got Councillor Healing who wants to speak. I know you're on Zoom.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would like the council to resist any changes that will impact on our decisions within the planning process. And I feel some of these changes the white paper suggests would be very detrimental to residents and the planning authority at East Riding. The white paper has put forward a new levy system in place of the Section 106 agreement. This could be a huge problem for the council financially, as we would have to wait years to recover our costs, and our residents, who are the local taxpayers, could possibly be in firing line. The white paper is short on detail in how the proposals will work. As a councillor, I cannot support this document as it is, as I believe it to be unrealistic and certainly not in the best interests of our residents and our parishes. The planning process needs to be considered properly at all levels, and particularly with our residents, and should be accessible for everybody. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm not happy with the way this has been presented. I'll give you an example. If you turn to page 58, we've got a question there, and the first thing we say is yes, and then we have a full A4 page of caveats. I think what we should be saying is, at the beginning, we have serious concerns, and these are the reasons why we have concerns. And maybe at the end, if we address these concerns, we would agree in principle. And I think the way this is being presented, and there's a lot of questions where we start off with the word yes, and then have this caveat of all these concerns. I think we should start off with listing all our concerns first, and then say, if these are addressed, we would agree in principle, rather than saying yes. I think it sends the wrong message. I accept what the planning officers have said. I accept what the caveats are, and I think they're good and they're sound, but we need to emphasise that more strongly than what we are doing today, Chairman. And I think we should review this, and I agree with Councillor Stathers that this should be delegated to the relevant portfolio holder and the chairman of the planning committee to agree with the director a more strong emphasis on the concerns we have. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. I've now got Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yeah, I would concur with both Councillor Stathers and Councillor Matthews. I think that it it is very incumbent upon us to reflect the meeting that we had in the full chamber last week. And I think that I have reservations about the wording, and I don't think that we are being strong enough in our response. And I think that I would ask that officers actually sort of reword this. I understand, and I am happy to take the lead, to be fair, from Councillor Matthews, because his experience in this matter is far greater than mine. But I do believe that the public, our residents, actually want us to actually fight this. And I think it's important that we are seen to be fighting this in full heart, as opposed to giving it lip service. So I definitely would challenge that. Unfortunately, I don't know whether I've not been aware, but I'm not aware that we've had a full briefing on this to all members. I thought it was just to the planning committee. And I would suggest that we all have a full briefing on this so that everybody is aware of what the ins and outs of the white paper are. But I'll leave it at that. But I totally agree with Councillor Stathers and Councillor Matthews. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think absolutely right. We're getting a clear message, and it is vital that we represent our residents to government, and we bolster these messages, and we pick up the wider debate that was at Cabinet. As regards the briefing to members, well, we have had a briefing to the planning committee and to the respective area committees, and I think something is being planned to be put in the diary for the wider members to be briefed as well. So I think that is in place. Councillor Abraham.
Thank you. I'll start on a positive, and I'd say congratulations to whoever's written the report, because it's not easy, but it's a really quick and easy read. So well done whoever wrote it. I agree with everything that's been said, though, in terms of we mustn't send the wrong message. We don't know how government officials will look at this, whether they will just take the yeses and the nos, whether they will read the qualifications that we're putting in there. So we need to make it as clear as we can so that we're not sending the wrong message. One particular point that I would like to make is that there's absolutely no mention of housing mix other than for affordable housing, and maybe that's something that will be picked up in the design codes that will come as part of the proposals. But I really would like it to be quite explicit that we need to be protecting housing for older people, and not just affordable housing for older people. There's a huge demand out there for market housing for people like us who now we want to move out of our larger houses when the children have flown the nest. We all need the smaller houses to downsize to. So if we can make it explicit in any way, I would really welcome that.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Abraham. Councillor Master.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As with the last time we discussed this, I agree in principle with everything that everybody's saying. I too would like to thank the author of the report. I think it's great. But I'm not comfortable with starting with, I noticed throughout the report starts yes, no, yes, no. If whoever was encapsulating all the responses simply had a tick box for yes, no, who supported it in terms of the council before reading all the depth, they would obviously, the yes or no would misrepresent our views, which are detailed below. But I think apart from that, I'm happy with everything else that's been proposed today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So we've had a range of views on there. In essence, I mean, this is a radical series of changes which, if proposed and implemented, will have lasting consequences. So it's absolutely right that we get our consultation correct, and it reflects the views absolutely correctly. So to the recommendations then, what we're proposing then is we are bolstering up our response, and we are with the necessary wording to recommend it to give that a little bit of extra force to it, but also want to ensure that in consultation includes the planning chairman. And we all agreed with that being the principal thrust of what we're wanting. So proposed and seconded from the floor. Are we all in agreement with those recommendations? That's unanimous. And from Councillor Healing as well from Zoom. Thank you. So then that moves us to item 7, revenue and capital budget monitoring 20 to 21. Mr. Julian Nielsen.
Thank you, Chair. This is the second revenue and capital budget monitoring report of the financial year. On the revenue budget, it reflects a broadly similar position as last month. In sections 2 and 3 of the report, what we've really set out here is that the pandemic is having a significant impact on the general fund revenue budget, which you can see on the table in page 72. We have a 18.9 million overspend on our services budgets, which largely reflects the downturn in our sales fees and charges income from customers, as we've already allocated grants to cover the expenditure pressures. But after we apply the balance of the funding provided by the government, and we recognise the savings measures that were agreed by Council in July, we are continuing to project a balanced budget on the general fund. And I'll just refer you as well to paragraph 7.2 in my commentary, where I've also highlighted that during August, the government published its scheme for compensating local authority losses in sales fees and charges. We have now submitted that claim as well. So if we manage to contain the pressures that we're seeing in the budget this year, then we'll be able to use that compensation to help manage the ongoing impact of the pandemic into the next financial year, which undoubtedly will see some impact on next year's budget, and we will need additional funding to manage that. At 3.10, there is a supplementary budget request, which is recommendation A, and that's that 1.7 million is released from the ICT Investment and Replacement Fund Reserve to fund the implementation of Microsoft 365. The procurement of that platform was agreed by Cabinet in March, and the implementation of that is something that will be key to supporting collaboration and agile working across the council in the future. In section 4 in the schools budget, we're continuing to project an overspend of around £2 million, which largely relates to the high needs funding block, where we're seeing, as I've previously described, an ongoing increase in demand for special educational needs places at schools and the support that those pupils need. The funding is demand driven. It's based on demand before the start of the financial year, but because we've got that continuing upturn, we are seeing demand increase above the level of funding that we have. As we set out 4.4, we will need to submit a plan to the Department for Education on how we're going to manage and clear the deficit on high needs, including the £3 million deficit from previous years, and that's something that we're currently working on. On the housing revenue count, similar position to last month. It's projected to outturn with an overspend of £0.9 million, which is just under 2% of the budget, and that variance will be met from HRA earmark reserves. On the capital budget, there was a significant change last month to recognise the impact of the pandemic on the capital budget, and the changes this month are relatively minor. So we're seeing a projected outturn on the programme this year of £150.6 million, which is £2.1 million under budget, and at 6.3 and 6.4, there are recommendations which are set out in the appendix to amend the capital programme for a small number of changes. In Appendix 1, some changes to the programme to recognise additional A-roads maintenance and right to buy replacements being funded within the HESL Extra Care programme, and also Appendix 2, a couple of reprofiling variances relating to Carnaby Depot and the Housing Revenue Account Purchase and Repair programme, which is set out in Recommendation B. Happy to take any questions on that report.
Thank you for that. Anybody got any points on this one. Clearly, we covered a lot of this at the last meeting, and it's reassuring to know that, you know, we're still on course to balance the budget, and obviously we are putting our returns in to government, which is absolutely the right thing to do to ensure that they get a clearer picture as possible as regards our loss of income and such like. And as regards myself, I welcome the recommendations to support Microsoft 365. We've talked about this for a long time, and it's never more important now in this time of agile working, home working, and the way we sort of do business really is to ensure that our IT is absolute investment is in place to be able to deliver this going forward, because clearly it's something that we need to ensure that it's in place, and it will make us sustainable going forward, because it's going to be a very much new way of working. On the capital fund, I mean, it's terrific that we're able to achieve what we are able to achieve, 150+ million pounds worth of investment, clearly in the middle of a pandemic. Where, I mean, we're obviously, you know, we're having to sort of approve some vehemence and some changes to this, but I mean, that's to be expected. But given the fact that we can still deliver the size and scale of what we're able to deliver at this time, I think is an absolutely remarkable achievement to all officers and everybody concerned. So I haven't got any speakers on this. I think I say we have covered a lot, but it's important that we are in the right place. So I'll go to the recommendations then, please. Are we happy to approve these recommendations as listed? Yeah, one second, unanimous, and that's from the Zoom as well. So thank you very much indeed for that. Much appreciated. So we've got now item 8, Corporate Performance Framework, Q1 Performance Review 2020 to 21. And that'll be the Director of Adults and Health and Customer Services, and that will be Mr. John Skidmore.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks very much indeed. This report is the Q1 performance review, and just I'd like to remind Cabinet that this typically is a backward look in terms of performance, given the data and the data sets that come through from the various organisations and Q3. I've set out for you on page 83 at paragraph 1.2 the reminder of the 6 strategies that are our corporate strategies, and there is a visual representation on page 84 of our performance in terms of red, amber and green in terms of the progress around the performance and status of the strategies. At the end of Q1, there were 123 outcome measures, which data was available for 82 of them. And I've set out for you a full breakdown in Appendix 1 of that detail. I've also set out some detail regarding milestones around those indicators in Appendix 2, and further information on the 13 measures that had not met their performance target. I've set that out on Appendix 3. The draft measures for the strategy relating to adult social care have now been identified, and I've listed those at the beginning of Appendix 2. And from Q2 onwards, the overall outcome measures will increase from 84 to 123 as a result of the outcome measures associated with this particular strategy. So at the end of Q1, there were 54 measures that were achieving or exceeding their milestone target, 15 measures that were within the agreed milestone, 13 measures which had not achieved the milestone, and 41 which are new or no data is available. And I've also available. We will be picking up, as I mentioned earlier, Chairman, the impact of the pandemic and the impact on the data sets and a review which will be explored going forward. On page 85 at the bottom, I've set out the key strategies, and particularly 2 subsections of the joint health and wellbeing strategy that's not currently achieving their target, which relates to childhood through to adolescence, and particularly around the 18 weeks related to CAMHS and the percentage of disadvantaged pupils achieving in English and maths at the end of key stage 4. I've also commented on at life stage 5, age well and end of life, and particularly two measures at the top of page 87, which relate to delayed transfers of care from hospital and the proportion of people at home 91 days after discharge. And clearly members will be aware that that's seen a rapid change in the subsequent quarter as a result of government policy and the changes we've had to put in place around adult social care in terms of supporting loved ones through the pandemic and what's that meant to our performance. So clearly that will be coming through. Paragraph 3.1, I've commented and listed the indicators that didn't achieve their target. And I just want to draw attention to the point I made about the time lag. Paragraph 3.2, I've given you the information regarding education, health and care plans regarding performance and the 20-week wait. But particularly pleasing to note that we're now exceeding that target in the current performance and what we're achieving within a service. So that just articulates the time lag, but giving you the confidence that that is now exceeding the overall targets. I've set down commentary in Appendix 3 relating to the other 12 measures. So in conclusion, Chairman, the Council continues to have a strong, confident focus around performance, and we continue to monitor on the review associated with the pandemic and what that may mean to the strategies and the indicators, and that's something that we're working across the organisation on. We've put the measures there listed for adult social care to complete the suite of indicators to the strategies that were agreed, and I'm therefore seeking Cabinet to note the Q1 performance, the trajectories that we're on, the comments that we've made around the reasons where we're not performing to milestone, and I'm happy, Chairman, to take any questions.
Okay, I mean, thank you, giving us a very clear and understanding of our performance, and it's absolutely right that we do ensure that we have a clear picture of our performance as we're going forward. And clearly, you know, given the time of the pandemic, absolutely right that we monitor it as close as we can and we get an understanding of where the challenges are, where the pressures are going to be. And I think it is a very clear format to follow. That's really helpful. And you have highlighted some of the clear challenges that we have in this mix. I've got a speaker, Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you for the reports, and there are clearly some gaps in the report in terms of data collection and achievement of the targets. But I think what you've articulated probably quite well is, you know, some of the reasons why. But what I would like to say is that what we need to ensure is not to be complacent around not having full sets of information and data, and also to when we're moving on in terms of COVID recovery, if there is ever such a thing, then we need to be sort of mindful. So all I would ask is that we keep on top of it, and that we start to understand, and we understand the speed at which we can both have the data that will be up to date, and where targets are not being achieved, that post-COVID we can start to look at how they will be achieved. But thank you all the same for the very legitimate kind of report and explanations.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. I've got Councillor Aitken.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. It's a suggestion really that I think that the information in this report is very important, and sometimes challenging for members to actually get a grasp of everything. And so I wondered if it might be worth having a bit of a members update as to understanding the process. We have new members in the council, and I think that it is something that is very, very important moving forward, that we do have an understanding of how this process works and understands the data. Because looking at the pictures, there are quite a lot of red, and probably more than members would like to see, and we probably need to be assured to be able to give the assurances to members that, that the processes are being followed.
Okay, thank you for that. I think absolutely right. It's never is a time when we need to be monitoring how we're doing and how what the future lies. And it's absolutely right that we're clear on this. So probably in the programme of member seminar, it's probably something that would be good for members to have an understanding of just how we deal with these things and how we pick it up and what the detail is that goes into it and how it works. So I think that'd be something that would be good to put in with our recommendations. Anybody else want to speak on this particular matter? So the recommendation as listed is duly is noted, and we'd like to have some sort of member seminar going forward in the future. So happy with that? Moved and seconded. Are we all happy to approve? Thank you very much. Includes Zoom mode as well. So thank you. That's duly approved. We've got item 9. Forward plan of key decisions, November 2020 to February 21, and that's the Director of Corporate Resources, Mr. Darren Stevens.
Okay, thank you, Chair. There are no new additions, changes or deletions to the forward plan of key decisions this time compared to the version that you saw at the last Cabinet meeting. So the recommendation is a straightforward one, that the forward plan for November to February next year approved.
Thank you very much. Happy to move that. Yeah, approved. All approved. On Zoom as well. Thank you very much. It's all approved. So we'll now exclude